Ever feel like you're judged unfairly?
Yeah.
You know, like people just see one side of you.
Yeah.
It's like Aries, the Greek god of war,
Yeah.
in a nutshell. We're diving deep into his story today,
Right into it.
going way beyond the battlefield to uncover this surprisingly complex figure.
What's so fascinating is how Aries, despite his association, with bloodshed,
Yeah.
represents so much more than just brute force.
Right.
He's a key player in these tales of justice,
Okay.
family ties, and even, passionate love affairs.
And to help guide us through all of this,
Yeah.
we have insights from Professor Susan D.C., a leading expert on Greek mythology.
Wonderful.
So get ready to challenge some of your assumptions.
Okay.
Because this is Aries like you've never seen him before.
The one story that really highlights this complexity is this tale of Aries becoming the first god to commit kinslaying.
Okay, kinslaying. That sounds intense.
Yeah.
For those of us who need a refresher,
Yeah.
what exactly does that mean?
Kinslaying is the act of killing a relative. And it was a very serious taboo
Right.
among the gods. You see, they were immortal.
Yeah.
Their conflicts were usually just these power struggles
Okay.
with no lasting consequences.
Right.
But this story changes everything.
So what happened?
Well, his daughter, Alcippe,
Alcippe.
was assaulted by Halorotheus,
Okay.
a son of Poseidon.
Uh-huh.
And he seemed to think that his divine lineage gave him the right to just do as he pleased.
Sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Some things never change.
Indeed. But Ares was fiercely protective of his daughter and took swift and fatal action.
Wow.
He killed Halorotheus right then and there.
He did.
And because this was kinslaying,
Yeah.
a crime unheard of at the time, it sparked a trial on the Areopagus.
Areopagus.
Yes. It's that rocky hill in Athens that later became a famous law court.
Okay.
Poseidon, understandably angry about his son's death, demanded justice.
Of course.
He argued that Ares, as the god of war, was inherently uncontrollable, driven by bloodlust, and therefore deserved punishment.
So it was a blame it on the war god kind of defense.
Precisely.
Oh.
But Ares countered
Yeah.
that he was simply protecting his daughter,
Yeah.
a vulnerable, mortal child of a god
Uh-huh.
who needed protection as fierce as the threats she faced.
It's almost a fatherly instinct, defending your family. It puts a whole new spin on Ares, doesn't it? So how did the gods rule?
After much deliberation,
Yeah.
the Olympians acquitted Ares.
They did.
They did. But this case set a precedent.
Okay.
Future instances of kinslaying by gods or mortals would be subject to trial.
So this one act, this defense of his daughter, actually shaped the relationship between the divine and mortal worlds.
Right.
It brought in this whole concept of justice and law.
Yes.
And on that Athenian hillside, no less.
Exactly. The Areopagus became this powerful symbol of this new system of justice.
It's incredible how one myth can reveal so much about a culture's values.
Yeah.
But when we talk about war gods,
Yeah.
we can't forget Athena. Right. She's often seen as the good war god,
Right.
with Ares being the bad one.
That's the common perception.
Yeah.
But it's a vast oversimplification.
Okay.
This idea of, neatly categorizing war as like good or bad
Uh-huh.
ignores its inherent complexities.
So how do Ares and Athena both represent war, but in different ways?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Athena is often associated with victory,
Yeah.
even called Athena Nike.
Right?
Her famous statue shows her holding a winged Nike,
Uh-huh.
the goddess of victory.
Yeah.
But Ares is also connected to victory.
He is.
He's even said to be Nike's father
Oh, wow.
in some accounts.
Interesting.
He represents the spoils of war,
Okay.
the sometimes brutal aftermath of conquest.
So both gods embody victory, but different sides of it.
Exactly.
The glory and the harsh reality.
Exactly. And even in the Iliad,
Yeah.
Zeus describes Ares as someone who loves strife, war, and battle,
Uh-huh.
aspects just as applicable to Athena. They both possess that fierce warrior spirit.
Yeah.
It's just expressed in different ways.
This is already changing how I think about these gods.
Yeah.
It's so much more nuanced than I ever realized.
It is.
But tell me, what about Ares' connection to Thrace?
Hmm.
That region was known for its fierce warriors, right?
Absolutely. The ancient Greeks saw Thrace as this wild, untamed land
Huh.
that mirrored Ares' nature.
Whoa.
It was even considered his homeland.
Interesting.
Thracian warriors were said to have hearts of Ares.
Hearts of Ares. That's a powerful image.
It is.
It speaks to this deep primal connection.
It does. They were renowned for their ferocity and courage in battle.
Yeah.
qualities very much associated with Aries.
So even if Aries wasn't as widely worshipped as some other gods,
Right.
his influence clearly extended far beyond the battlefield.
It did.
And it makes you wonder about his name itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Aries literally means war.
It does.
Yeah.
And that makes him a unique figure in the Greek pantheon. You don't see other gods personifying abstract concepts in quite the same way.
It's like he embodies the very essence of war,
Yes.
not just a god who participates in it.
Right.
And in ancient Greece, war was undeniably linked to masculinity.
It was, which
Yeah.
raises these fascinating questions about how the Greeks viewed gender and conflict.
Mm,
Was war seen as this inherently masculine concept?
yeah.
What does that tell us about their views on gender and conflict?
Those are some really interesting questions.
Yeah.
And it's something that maybe our listeners can ponder.
Yeah?
But for now, let's turn our attention to Aries' love life.
Okay.
He was famous, or perhaps infamous,
Yeah.
for his passionate affairs.
He was, and none more famous or scandalous than his affair with Aphrodite,
Oh, Aphrodite.
the goddess of love.
Love and war.
Yeah,
An interesting combination.
indeed.
But the Greek gods weren't exactly known for their monogamy, were they?
They were not.
What made this particular affair so scandalous?
Well, in this case, Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship. You can imagine his reaction
Yeah?
when he discovered his wife's infidelity,
I could only imagine.
especially with the god of war.
Yeah. I can't even imagine the drama on Mount Olympus.
Oh, I'm sure it was quite something.
Hephaestus doesn't strike me as someone you'd want to cross.
He was known for his cleverness as much as his skill,
Okay.
and he got his revenge
He did.
in a rather ingenious way. Theseus crafted a net so fine it was invisible,
Wow.
even to the gods.
Invisible net.
And then he used it to trap the lovers
Oh, no.
in the act.
So he caught them red-handed, so to speak.
He did indeed.
Oh.
And to make matters worse,
No.
he invited all the other gods to witness the spectacle.
Public humiliation.
Talk about it.
Ouch. That must have been quite the gossip on Mount Olympus.
Oh, I would imagine so.
What happened to Aries and Aphrodite after that?
Well, they were eventually released,
Okay.
but the humiliation was severe.
Of course.
Both retreated to their respective domains. Aries to Thrace
Right.
and Aphrodite to Cyprus.
Okay.
It's a reminder that even gods aren't immune to the consequences of their actions,
Yeah.
especially in matters of the heart.
And it shows that Hephaestus wasn't just this skilled craftsman,
Right.
but a strategic thinker.
No, absolutely.
He definitely planned that revenge
He
carefully.
did.
But did Aries and Aphrodite have any children together?
They did.
They did.
Yes. And their children are a fascinating reflection of their parents' relationship.
Interesting.
Perhaps the most famous is Harmonia, the goddess of harmony.
A goddess of harmony.
It's ironic, isn't it?
It is. It really makes you think about how opposing forces can be interconnected.
Right.
But weren't there others?
Yes. They also had Eros,
Era.
the god of love and desire,
Right.
whose arrows could ignite passion, but also sow chaos.
Makes sense.
We see this duality reflected in his parentage.
Eros. Always stirring things up.
He is.
Both among gods and mortals.
Yes.
But I thought Ares was sometimes considered a primordial god,
Yeah.
existing before the Olympians.
There are different versions of his parentage, as is often the case in Greek mythology.
Okay.
He's sometimes described as a primordial force,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also depicted as the son of Ares and Aphrodite.
Okay.
It adds another layer of complexity to their relationship.
Right. And let's not forget Phobos and Deimos,
Ah, yes.
the personifications of fear and terror who often accompanied Ares into battle.
Indeed.
So even their children embody different aspects of war
Right.
and its psychological effects.
Precisely. The family dynamics of the gods were never simple.
Never simple, no.
But it all highlights how multifaceted Ares truly is.
All
He's
right.
not just this force of destruction. He's a
Mhm.
father,
Yeah.
a lover, a figure who inspires a whole range of emotions and consequences.
He's certainly more than just the raging god of war, I always imagine.
I'm glad to hear it.
And I read that the Greeks didn't always view him negatively, did they?
They did not. While he represented the destructive aspects of war, they also recognized the courage and strength required of warriors.
Right?
Those were qualities they admired.
It's like they understood that war, with all its horrors,
Yes,
also revealed certain virtues in those who fought.
absolutely.
Unnecessary evil, perhaps.
It's a complex issue,
I-
and Ares embodies that complexity.
Okay.
He can be destructive and violent,
Right.
but as we saw with his daughter,
Yeah.
he's also fiercely protective of those he cares about.
That protectiveness adds a different dimension to his character, doesn't it?
It does.
And you mentioned earlier that his name, Aries,
Yes.
literally meaning war,
Yes.
was unique in the Greek pantheon.
It is. And when you combine that with how war was intrinsically linked to masculinity in ancient Greece,
Right?
it makes you think about how those concepts were intertwined in their society.
Okay.
Was war seen as this inherently masculine concept?
Yeah.
What does that tell us about their views on gender and conflict?
Those are some really interesting questions.
They are.
And it's something that maybe our listeners can ponder.
Indeed. There's always more to unpack when we delve into these ancient myths.
There really is. But before we move on, I think it's time we address Aries' Roman counterpart,
Okay.
Mars.
Mars.
How did the Roman god of war differ from his Greek predecessor?
There's this misconception that Mars was somehow more refined or civilized than Aries. But in truth, both gods share those core traits associated with warfare,
Okay.
courage, and military prowess.
So it's more about a shift in focus
Yes.
rather than a complete transformation.
Exactly. In Roman mythology, Mars played the central role in the foundation of their society.
Okay.
He's known as the father of Romulus and Remus.
Right. The legendary founders of Rome.
Exactly.
So his role expanded beyond war
They did.
to include themes of national identity
Yeah.
and their origin story.
Precisely, Mars became a symbol of Rome's military power, embodying the strength and discipline that fueled their empire.
Right.
He was also associated with agriculture, representing the protection and defense of Roman lands.
So he was this more multifaceted figure in Roman society,
He was.
embodying not just war,
Right.
but the virtues that underpinned their civilization.
Exactly.
It's interesting how different cultures adapted these gods
Yes.
to fit their own values and narratives.
It is. But we shouldn't forget that Aries, too, possessed a broader range of attributes
Okay.
than he's often given credit for.
Okay.
For instance, he was considered an oracular deity.
Really?
Yes, capable of prophecy and divination.
I had no idea.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It seems there's always more to learn about these ancient gods.
There always is. And that's part of what makes these deep dives so rewarding, uncovering the complexities and contradictions that make these figures so enduringly fascinating.
Speaking of uncovering things, let's talk about how Aries was depicted in ancient Greek art.
Okay.
What can those images tell us about how he was perceived?
Well, he's typically portrayed as this youthful, vigorous warrior,
Right.
often clad in full armor
Yeah.
and wielding a spear or sword.
So the classic image of a battle-ready god.
Yes.
But were there any depictions
Yeah.
that deviated from this warrior stereotype?
There are a few intriguing exceptions.
Okay.
For instance, on the Parthenon frieze,
Okay.
a remarkable sculptural masterpiece,
Yeah.
Ares is depicted seated peacefully,
Really?
alongside Demeter,
Wow.
the goddess of agriculture.
Wait, a peaceful Aries.
Yeah.
That's not the image that usually comes to mind.
It is a surprising juxtaposition, isn't it?
It is.
But it reminds us that even the god of war had moments of respite,
Right.
and that his character wasn't entirely defined by conflict.
That's a great point. It challenges that simple view of him as perpetually enraged
Yes.
and bloodthirsty.
Exactly. And it speaks to these broader themes of balance and harmony
Yeah.
that permeate Greek mythology.
It's amazing how these ancient myths and images can still spark such interesting conversation.
I agree.
So if our listeners want to learn more about Aries, where should they go from here?
Professor Susan DC's work is an excellent starting point.
Okay.
She's written extensively on Ares and other Greek deities,
Yeah.
offering insightful analysis.
Great.
Her book on Ares is a must-read for anyone wanting to go beyond a surface-level understanding.
Absolutely. And of course, there are the original myths themselves.
Of course.
Homer's Iliad offers vivid descriptions of Ares in all his glory.
Yes. And don't forget the other works of ancient Greek literature and poetry.
Okay.
You'll find references to Ares everywhere, from plays to philosophical treatises.
Right.
Each one offers a different perspective on his character and influence.
It's incredible how these stories from thousands of years ago can still resonate with us today.
They do.
They offer insights into human nature,
Yeah.
our relationship with the divine,
Right.
and that eternal struggle between order and chaos.
They do. And Ares, with all his complexities and contradictions, embodies that struggle perfectly.
He does.
He reminds us that even the most powerful figures have vulnerabilities.
Right.
And that even amidst war, there can be moments of peace and reflection.
That's a powerful message.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Aries, the god of war,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember?
I think the most important thing is to resist oversimplification.
Hmm.
Aries is not just this one-dimensional figure of rage and violence.
Right.
He embodies both the destructive and creative aspects of war.
Yeah.
He's a father,
Hmm.
a lover, a protector,
Yeah.
a figure whose influence went far beyond the battlefield.
Okay.
By embracing this complexity, we can gain a deeper understanding not just of Aries, but of the ancient Greek world
Hmm.
and the enduring power of their myths.
Beautifully said. So to our listeners,
Yes.
keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep digging deeper into these fascinating stories.
Absolutely.
You never know what surprising insights you might uncover.
That's right.
And who knows, maybe you'll even discover a bit of Aries within yourself.
Perhaps.
We all have the capacity for both creation and destruction.
Yes.
For passion and restraint.
That's right.
The key is finding the balance, just like those ancient gods on Mount Olympus.
Well said.
That's a great thought to leave our listeners with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Aries.
My pleasure.
And remember to subscribe to the Deep Dive for more explorations into the realms of knowledge and ideas.